Mac and Wise podcast. Thank you guys for coming. I know you could be anywhere in the world, and I'm glad you're spending your time with me. You can get back a lot of things, but you can't get back time. So we appreciate you at Mac and Wise podcast. Today I have a guest with me, a special guest, a young man I want to introduce you. His name is Sherrod. Welcome, Sherrod, to Mac and Wise podcast. Thank you so much for being here. You dig? So, actually, we're going to get into him. He's an artist and an up-and-coming artist, and I really, really like his music. It's conscious music. Maybe later on we'll get into how he came about being a conscious thing. But first and foremost, I want you to introduce yourself to the people. I want to let them know who you are, where you come from, and what you doing right now.
All right. Well, name is Sherrod, also known as You Freedom. You know, I rap. You know, I'm an artist. I'm an aspiring businessman, also a podcaster. You know what I mean?
Tell them your channel. Let them know where your channel is and where they can find that at.
Well, as far as my individual channel, you can find my individual channel on Free TV right there on YouTube. Or if you need a little bit more help finding it, you can just type in Free TV 34. You'll see it right there. And as far as my podcast, you know, my co-host Lay, you just type in the Free Lay Show and you'll find it right there.
So you can find it on the Free Lay Show. You can type it in and you can find it. So, you know, we had a 24-hour of nonviolence the other day, which was absolutely, I loved it because people came out. There was a few little quirks, few incidents, but nothing major. But we really appreciate you and you guys that came out and supported the nonviolent movement because we need that, man. We tired of this black-on-black crime. We tired of crime, period. Hurting people is just not the way, you know what I'm saying? Because we God-fearing people, you know. We don't appreciate people going around hurting people for no reason. And I'm glad that they came out and they stood tall. The music was excellent. The vendors came out with a bunch of food. Everybody ate. And we really appreciate you guys. We want you all to know that. So I'm going to get into a conversation with you about your music.
Right.
And I wanted to know what made you start really wanting to develop your skills in music.
Well, like how I initially started off with music, you know, I had a little bit of development problem, like speech development problem, you know what I mean, back then.
So talk about that. So what do you mean, you had a speech impediment?
Well, I think back then they called it severe articulation disorder, meaning like basically what it means is how I would basically mispronunciate words instead of saying them, you know, in the correct way. Mm-hmm. So how I started off with music, you know, it used to get played around the house every day from
Okay.
Tupac, Big, Nas, Jay-Z, Wu-Tang, specifically Raekwon.
Ghostface was out here the other day. He brought some smoke there because he stood on there for a minute. I mean, he really gave a little show. I appreciated the way he stood up and, you know, he really gave us a show. He didn't do 2 or 3 bars and split. He really stood out there, so I appreciate that. Go ahead. I'm sorry for
man, it's cool, man. But I grew up on Wu-Tang, you know what I mean? So, you know, when my mom's bought me back in the day was this little recorder. I think it was by Fisher Price. It was white, red, and yellow.
You know, that's deep. You remember? I remember that too.
Yeah, you remember the jar, right?
Yeah, I'm a little older, but I remember when it came out. But go ahead.
Word up. So, you know, it was really a way for me to practice. So, you know, I just had this uncanny ability to not only repeat stuff, but also remember as well. So, around 97, you know, Big's Life After Death came out. So what I did, I memorized the whole Victory, even though they came out with another album.
Right.
But, I memorized Big's whole verse on Victory. Now, mind you, this is 4 or 5-year-old me. I didn't understand what the hell he was saying, so I was like, and then eventually over time, you know, it just came to me.
So now repeat that again. You said you was only 4 or 5, but you would articulate what he was saying, and then you was able to actually spit it out.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. So at an early age, you already knew this was something that you wanted to do. This was something that you gravitated to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And another favorite memory of mine was when I was 5 years old, still having, speech problems.
Right.
Big Pun, he came out with his his infamous line, the tongue twister, that
Right.
in the middle,
Right.
yeah, that one.
But let me ask you a question
Yeah.
now, because a lot of people say this, and I want to know, for me,
Yeah.
I want to know who came out with the tongue twister first. Was it Busta Rhymes? Was it Twister? Was it Big Pun? Was it Jay-Z? Because Jay-Z on one of his first albums, Busta Rhymes, to tell you he actually beat him in a tongue twisting rap battle.
Right.
So I'm curious to find out. I got to do a little bit digging, a little bit of research on it. Like, who was the first one that actually came out with that tongue twisting rhyme? Because there's a lot of people that has that, but I never really figured out who was the first one to actually do it.
Well, to my knowledge, I think Bus and Twister came out like
Equally the same, or
Like,
around the same time?
yeah, around the same time, because
okay.
well, Buzz, he was over in the East Coast and in New York, and while Tongue Twister, or simply Twister, he was over there in Chicago. Like, he was still developing the style.
Right.
And with Jay, he was still trying to find himself, so he was just trying to,
Different things, yeah, to find exactly his niche, what they would call a niche.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so I would say, like, the X, J, and Pun out the equation. And
Put those two.
yeah, Bust and Twist.
Okay. So you said, so I interrupted you, but you were saying you was listening to Big Pun with the Twister, and so go ahead.
Yeah, like all the adults around my neighborhood at that time, they was having trouble trying to. They was tripping. So.
And what about Bone Thugs and Harmony?
Oh yeah.
Because we can't forget about Bone Thugs. I mean, they was an innovator to that twist line too. I mean, they really set the tone for a lot of people doing the twist too. So it's kind of hard because now we got to figure out who came up.
And you also got to count Memphis, the 3-6 Mafia.
So I'm just trying to figure out. So you know what we could do? We could do a history check and find out who came out first. But go ahead. As far as you saying about Big Pun and the lyrics, and go ahead.
Yeah. So while I seen all the adults at the time, they was having trouble like, but me. Me, I was able to get it like literally on the first try. In the middle of the window, we know that we riddle some man who didn't. I'm like,
whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, you know something too? I want to, before you leave, we're going to let you do a freestyle for the people to actually hear you, because the young man has got some talent. He's going places, and this is why I wanted to sit down. You were one of the first ones to sit down with him. Ask him some of the things that they're going to ask him frequently. You're going to get these questions 100 different times.
Right.
But I wanted to be the first here at Mac and Wild's podcast. Number one, first to do one thing in all things. Peace.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead.
Yeah, so that actually did a lot to my self-esteem as a 5-year-old, because I was already feeling like subconscious about it. But then as time went on, like years went past, like I would stop doing it, pick it back up, stop doing it, pick it back up. But then like the pivotal point came when I was like, 11 years old. This was like 2004, folks. So I used to go visit.
Still a young man. You see that?
Yeah.
You dig? But go ahead.
Yeah.
You got a future ahead of him, so pay attention. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the most pivotal point came in 2004 when I used to visit my cousin's house up in NCC, like every weekend. So her and my mom's, my brother, they had their little fun like downstairs. I would go upstairs. Well, me and my older brother, we would go upstairs and listen to my older cousin. He was always like rapping and things like that. So time went on, I was like, hey yo, I want to do that. So I asked another cousin who was like always chilling with this cousin. I'm like, hey yo, teach me how to rap, man. So he showed me like the writing format and how to count bars and things like that. And eventually it just came, like it just stuck with me. I just kept practicing on the low, away from people. And then I just came out with it in high school. I think it was around like the 10th grade. Like once I went to Science Park High, by the way. So
shout out to Science Park High.
Yeah. So at the time, I saw like the students, they was rapping too. So I'm saying everybody rapping. I'm like, hey yo, I could do that. So my first official track came. It was it was a quick little 16 bars over Drake's Light Up.
Okay.
Yeah, I put it out, on MySpace and SoundCloud. And literally, while I came back to school, like, somebody came up to me like, "Hey, yo, I didn't know you could rap." I'm like, "Oh, you heard that?" He's like, "Yeah." So,
Confidence booster. When people hear your music and they know and they like it, that's definitely a confidence booster. So let me ask you another question.
What's up?
Who do you feel, and first of all, what do you feel is the music industry going towards now, and how do you fit in with what's going on now? Like, what does your music stand for? Who do you think that this day and time, that you kind of see that is the kind of way you want to go? Or is it just you just basically doing what you feel in your heart is what is going to be the next wave?
Well, honestly, like, if I'm being honest, I don't think I fit in with the industry.
Okay.
Let's just be for real.
Okay. Well, you got to keep it. That's what we're here for, man. You got to let the people know who you are.
Yeah.
How you want to transition your music.
Yeah, but honestly, I don't personally think I fit in with the industry because, like, a lot of the music that's being put out on mainstream, like, it just seems like a whole bunch of killer dude, shooter dude, sex.
Kill your mama, kill your brother, tie somebody up. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So let me see. So you're more of a conscious rap. So basically, what do you talk about, or what do you rap about that's different than the industry?
Well, from my point of view, I just rap about, like, the average person growing up, in Newark, or what they call the urban area, just trying to not fall victim to the traps they got out here, man. Just trying to make a difference out here.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And so, how does your music make a difference, and how do you see that it will make a difference? Well, like, can you touch the youth so they won't commit the same crimes or atrocities that other people? Like, tell me, how deep does your music go where you think you can reach or touch young individuals so they won't do the same things that's been going on in our urban community for generations?
Well, personally, I think, honestly, it's really enough of that out here as is.
Well, it's easy to get in, but hard to get out.
Exactly.
So let's go into that. Like you said, entrepreneurship. So that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me some of the things that, besides your music, that you want to do with the rest of your life. Like, what are you passionate about besides music?
Well, I will also, even though I've been kind of off the rock lately, but I would say, like, holistic health, because honestly that's important. And if you know anything about holistic health, that just basically means, like, the whole human being, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Like, it's like, to me, it's easier to heal the physical than it is the mental and, the spiritual, because, like, anybody can get themselves in shape, you know what I mean, with the gym, eat right, but if your mental ain't there, like, if you ain't mentally centered, spiritually centered, then, like, you just gonna be another person with muscles, you know what I mean? Another person with muscles, but no real, like, direction to point at,
So it's about changing the mindset.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So when we change our mindset, then we generate different thoughts.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
These thoughts become mentally sound for us, because now we want to generate a wellness, it's not just with our body, but with our mind.
Right.
Right. So that's a deep concept. You understand what I'm saying? So we don't want to just physically grow. We want to mentally grow. And in order for us to mentally grow, we have to change our mindset from negativity to positivity. So this is one of the things where I wanted to talk to the young man, because he does rap about conscious things, about things that's going on in the neighborhood, and things that can change if we change. You can't bring about a change unless we change as a people. Okay.
And another thing I actually want to add on to that is accountability. You know what I mean? Because now we're in a time where, like, a lot is being exposed. Like, a lot of things that was done in the dark, like in the past, like, in this day and time, it's being brought to the forefront. So with that in mind, you seeing all this happen, you gotta realize that everything that you say and do, you held accountable for. Like, regardless of what level of awareness that you are, you're being held accountable every day for everything that you say and do. So, pardon me, I mean what you say what you mean, and that comes with the actions as well.
Sometimes when I think about what you just said, it dawns on me that a lot of people when they say things, sometimes it be out of content, or the media takes it out of content of what they actually said because they didn't say it properly.
Right.
So sometimes you got to step back before you say something and think about what you said or what you're going to say, because it affects the people around you. Because they had a whole bunch of stuff that went on last year with the athletes saying certain things, and they banned them and took their money because so because that goes along with what happens in the United States. And I'm not a political type of person, so don't get me involved in all political stuff. But at the same token, you got to realize these athletes or different people who said certain things, and they was punished by taking away their salaries, by taking away their job. You can go to Easy, you can go to the basketball player that said something, and all of a sudden they wanted to take their money, they wanted to take, and actually they wanted to really, really scrutinize and punish them for the actions that they said. And then this is supposed to be the land of the free. Your Second Amendment, you have the right to say what you want to say. But anyway, that goes beyond what we're talking about today. We get into that another time.
Right.
Yeah. So, so on your conscious music and the elevation of your mind, creating these things. So how do you go about creating the things that you say? I wouldn't even call them rhymes. I would call them how you feel. How you go about creating those things? Like how you sit down with a piece of paper or a pen, or do you actually think of the concept and you able to put it out without paper and pen, or you sit down and think about it and then write it down? No, because there's a lot of rappers that always say, "Nah, I came off the top of my head and da da da," and know they wrote those bars like 2 years ago. You dig?
Yeah.
So how do you do it?
Well, even though I am working towards more of the off the top type of style. But if I'm being honest, I actually write my stuff down. I ain't gonna even sit here and cap.
Right.
Now, what I do is whatever I feel at the moment, or whatever the beat is actually inspiring. I just sit down, just think of it, think of what I want to say, and then I just start writing things down.
Okay, that's a beautiful thing, man. You know what I'm saying? You put it on a piece of paper, then you can memorize it, and it don't go nowhere. Because a lot of times our train of thought, we lose thought. If you ain't right in the booth and spitting it right then and there, you'll lose that train of thought of what you said. You know what I'm saying? And unless you right there and it all flows concurrent, right? So.
Oh yeah, and another funny thing, it's funny you mentioned that because I remember a while ago I watched a documentary called The Art of Rap, and when it got to Tretch, from Northern by Nature.
Oh, he was out here too.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, Tretch was out here yesterday.
Oh yeah, I missed it. But
yeah, he was out here yesterday.
But he was like, "Hey yo," when people say "Hey yo," I don't be writing my lyrics down, and he was like, "Yeah, it sound like it." Hey yo, that had me dying. I had to pause the movie. I was like, "Yo."
Sound like you don't write your raps either, because you busted.
Yeah, it hold no punches though.
Yeah,
hey, said this. He was like, yeah, it sound like it.
Well, you gotta be a person that is able to what they say, criticize, but in a good way. You know what I'm saying? That makes a person better. Because I remember seeing an interview, and matter of fact, I seen an interview with Alicia Keys one time, and her and Jay was doing the State of Mind,
right?
And Jay, she wrote something down and did her verse and everything, and Jay said, "Listen, that ain't it. Come back and give me something else." But he said it in a loving way. They coochie and crunch. He did. But it happens. Drake did the same thing with a few of his people. So let me ask you another question. So where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years? Where do you plan on being in the next 5 years with your music?
Well, I mean, I'm still kind of iffy about it, but I'm actually moving towards the direction of starting my own, I guess you could say label. You know what I mean? Where not only am I a signed artist, but
something like Baby or Puffy, or you have your label and you actually an artist on your label. Or Jay-Z did the same thing. Rockefeller, Master P, Nipsey. You know, there's quite a few of them that did it before Nipsey came. You know, did it. But you know, Birdman was one of them. Puffy was one of them. Jamie Dupree was one of them. You know what I'm saying? So there was quite a few black people that did that, and that's a beautiful thing in the strive for having your own.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to have like my own movement where you have the option to not only join like my movement, but you can actually turn yourself into like your own boss. Because I don't like honestly, I don't want like whoever I decide to work with, partner with, I don't want them like relying on me too much. You know, I want them to be able to stand on their own too. That way they can just go and do their own thing.
Well, that's that's the most beautiful thing I heard, because a lot of times people try to stifle. And what I mean by that is they try to keep a person solely dependent on them so they can't grow.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what a lot of the labels did. They got artists, put them on a bunch of contracts that really would never let them grow, because every time they made some money, they usually owed most of the money because they got advances on that, advances on the filming of the videos, and basically they wind up being broke or in debt to the company. So it's a beautiful thing that you actually want anybody that come underneath you to grow exponentially. You know what I'm saying? You want them to have their own, whatever they choose, whatever endeavor they choose. If they want to stop music, maybe they want to be an entrepreneur, maybe they want to create jobs for other people. So that's a beautiful thing too. We're gonna have to speed this up because the time is moving on, and I know your time is very valuable, and we don't want to take up too much of it. But we just had to come and I had to shit. You want to do any freestyle or anything that you want to give them, or you want to say that for another time?
I'm gonna say that for another time, but what I will say is, whatever you say and do, you know what I mean, whatever you're into, make sure you give your best to what you're doing, and make sure you also help hold yourself accountable for everything you do. Because at the end of the day, the person that's gonna hold the ball or be responsible for everything that's said and done, good or bad, is you.
And with that being said, peace.
Peace.